I woke up this morning and I said to myself, Regis, this would be a great day to go over to CNN and guest host Piers Morgan's show. So let's go. It's me, Regis. Now, if I could only get a big star, I mean one person I really want to talk to. This is the real Dave Letterman. This is why you never see him guessing anywhere. He won't do it.
The two people who are the most important to me in my life, you and my wife, have the same name.
Hey, Regis. How you doing? Hey, look up there. Watch out, CNN. It's me, Regis, hosting Piers Morgan tonight. Hi, everybody. It's me, Regis. Remember me? I'm a good pal of Piers Morgan. We, 5 years ago, started America's Got Talent. I was the host, and Piers was a very, very severe judge. Oh, boy, was he something. Anyway, I'm very flattered to be here tonight, and I'm very happy to have as my very special guest someone you don't see guesting anywhere. I mean, he just doesn't do it. People have tried for years. He's not a guest. He's a host, and a great host, too. Speaking about David Letterman. Now, you know, you're not going to see David Letterman walking in the streets of New York. You could look for him. You're never going to see him. You're not going to see him ever dancing at the Waldorf. And you're not going to see him getting all dressed up to go to the Metropolitan Costume Ball here in New York City. He just doesn't do things like that. But you can see him every night on his own show. And I must tell you how all this happened because, as I said, he doesn't really do this. But Don Rickles and I were guests on Dave's show. And Rickles was very hot that night. We had a wonderful show. And after the show, Dave took everybody out to dinner. And so we're out at dinner, and Dave says, "What's next in your life?" And I said, well, I couldn't even think of what was next. And Joyce said, well, you heard from CNN today. Piers Morgan is taking a week off. They'd like you to do a night. And Dave said, that's great. I'd like to be your guest. And I said, wait a minute. You want to be my guest? I know you a long time. You sure you want to be a guest? I want to be a guest. I didn't bring it up the rest of the night. Just before we broke to go home, I said, Dave, now are you sure? And he said, I'm going to be there. Sure enough, he is here. And you'll see him, you know, on his own show every night, 11:35. He's streaking across the stage, comes out looking like $1 million and gives you the best hour of television you'll see that day or that night. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, my guest, David Letterman.
Oh, boy.
You heard the applause.
Very nice.
Hi, Dave.
Regis. How are you?
Have a seat right
Thank
here.
you very much. Thank you so much.
Huh? Dave, take a look around at how Piers Morgan lives. Why can't we live like this?
You know, I had to use the bathroom before I came out here.
Yeah.
The lighting in the restroom is superior to the lighting on your old show. This place is amazing. It is remarkable.
Well, it's all brand new. Now, listen, you're at a place over there on Broadway, the old Ed Sullivan Theater.
Yes, I love the Ed Sullivan Theater.
You did it over nicely.
We were looking at different facilities around the city. This hadn't even been built.
That's right.
And we went in there, and it was a minute or two away from being condemned in actuality.
Sure.
And by God, in a very short period of time, they turned it from whatever it had been into just a first-rate television facility. And I'm from the school that you do TV in a studio. Mm-hmm. And so I was wondering if it could be, in fact, done from a theater. But the place is fantastic.
It is.
I look around there every night, and I think I'm so lucky to be a part of a production coming from this place because it's both intimate and it's as big as you need it to be and as intimate as you need it to be.
And very nostalgic. You know, I've done your show more than anyone else, but we've never really had a chance to talk about our childhood. Mm-hmm. I got to tell you something. I had no idea this would ever happen to me, that I would get on television. I had no confidence at all. Didn't pursue anything in high school or college like the stage or anything that might have helped me a little bit. But I did fall in love with Bing Crosby's voice in the Depression of the late 30s going into the 40s. WNDW played Crosby at 9:30 every night. And I loved him, and I loved the sound of his voice and the way he acted. And that was my only inspiration to get involved in this business. Now, take me back when you were a young little guy in Indianapolis. Did anybody inspire you? Did you have a favorite comedian or comic or somebody?
I mean, it wasn't Bing Crosby. I mean, this is right after the Civil War. I mean, you are way back there.
I knew you'd say that.
Well, you know, when I was a kid, my mom, before I went to school, when I used to like Arthur Godfrey. And in those days, Arthur Godfrey dominated television.
Yes.
He had like a morning radio show. Then that was part of that was a television show also. There was a simulcast of the radio show. And then he had a nighttime talent scouts show on Monday nights.
Exactly.
And then he had, later in the week, he had an hour-long variety show. So our household was full of Arthur Godfrey productions. And I can just remember being fascinated by when they would open the television part of the simulcast, they would have the earphones. And the earphones would just be hanging there to suggest where Arthur would, you know, place his head. And there was something about the microphone and the earphones and the equipment that I found fascinating.
Really?
And I just thought, there's something very cool about this.
This is September 1st, 1969. I saved this magazine for 43 years.
Wow.
And this is the first year 3 networks went with a talk show host late at night.
Right.
And this is Merv just starting at
Which one is
CBS.
Merv? This is Merv right there?
This is Merv.
Good heavens.
Well, sure.
Joey Bishop,
Here's
your
Joey
buddy,
Bishop.
and Johnny
He
Carson.
started in 67 and Johnny in 1962.
Right.
Now, what were you doing in 1969? Were you still in school?
1969?
Yeah, that's when this whole...
Yeah, I was just graduating from college.
And did you have an eye for the show business at that point?
Well, it's a silly story, but we're better to tell a silly story than here with you. I was like you. I was sort of lost in school, and I had a bunch of friends, and as the grades progressed, I realized how important it was to study and make good grades if you wanted to have the same peer group. And I was falling behind. I couldn't do anything. And all of my buddies were math and chemistry and algebra and on. And I was kind of on the soft curriculum. You know, it was, you know, shop and that sort of. Nothing wrong with that. But that's I can remember doing so poorly. My mom was very upset about it. And she said, "We're going to try to get you into a trade school." And again, that would have been fine. But I was not able to keep up. And then one semester I took a public speaking course. And the first assignment for the public speaking course was a 5-minute extemporaneous, what do they call it, speech, made an ad-lib speech. I don't know what they call it.
Sure.
And so I got up and did that, and I whether it went well or not, I felt it went well, and I realized, oh, this might be my saving my life line. I might be able to turn this into doing something.
Isn't that nice? But
so then I stopped worrying so much about other things and just knew that all I have to do is find a way that you can get paid for what I thought I could do, whether I could or not.
And when did the comedy phase hit you, that you wanted to be a comedian, you wanted to get involved in comedy?
Well, as a kid, I think most kids are always funny. You know, kids are always trying to be funny, and all of my buddies were funny. And I just thought, well, this would be great if I could get a job writing. I'd worked in television and worked in radio, but it was not as challenging or as exciting as I wanted it to be. It was pretty prohibitive. You know, you were a weatherman, a newsman, or a kid show host.
So one night you just packed up and drove to Hollywood?
Well, in a manner of speaking, yes. In 1975, I did that. My wife and I left, put everything in the truck, and went to California.
Went to California. And things happened right away.
Happened right away, but not because of me. It was just in those days, as I said before, if you wanted to go to California and become a comic or get involved in comedy, writing, performing, whatever, the blueprint for that was laid out in front of you every night on The Tonight Show. They would have brand new comedians, some returning, some new, and Johnny would invariably say before or after, that was Steve Landesberg. You can see Steve Landesberg every night of the week at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard here in Hollywood. And pretty soon you realized that was a instant connection.
Absolutely.
Comedy Store, you knew that they had the amateur night, and then the Tonight Show. So in 1975, I went out there, and 3 years later, I was a guest on the Tonight Show. So it was so much easier for me. And it was great for the Tonight Show because they needed people to, you know, in those days the show was 90 minutes.
That's right.
Your show was an hour. It just seemed like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's the same thing.
You get on the Johnny Carson show. It's your turn to go on the show, and I think you knocked him out that night.
I did pretty well, but first-timers tend to do pretty well because In those days, they had a wonderful screening system. They would have talent coordinators would come to see you, and they would work out a set, and they would say, yeah, we think we like you, and we'll be back in 6 weeks. And they didn't. The last thing they wanted to do was have a guy come on and not do well, or have a woman come on and not do well. Because this was the Tonight Show. This was the Cadillac, by God.
Absolutely.
They wanted to look, you know, there was never a soft moment on that show.
You're right.
So you were pretty well guaranteed through working with this people that you were going to do all right.
And you did just fine, because not everybody got invited over to the desk and heard this from Johnny Carson.
I had to hitchhike over here this evening, and this guy stops and picks me up. He's driving an old beat-up Dodge with a bent frame. You know, they kind of go down the freeway at an angle like that. And right away, I'm apprehensive about getting in, you know. The guy driving the car is wearing a cowboy hat and a hospital gown, see? So... And he's rolling, the thing that bothers me most of all about him, he's rolling the biggest joint I'd ever seen in my entire life. He was using Pampers, and...
I have a feeling from your shot on this show tonight, you're going to be working a lot outside the Comedy Store.
Thank you.
Really, I hope you come back with us.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, there's Johnny.
He predicted it right there.
That breaks my
that
heart.
you were going to be
Johnny
a big
again.
hit.
Please don't roll any more tape.
Really?
No, I'm coming across the table if you roll another tape.
No kidding.
There's
really?
going to be bloodshed right here.
We worked for
I can take you.
We worked for 2 months to put this together.
Care.
It really bothers you.
I don't want any more tape.
No, we're not going to do it. You heard him. Cancel the tape. When we come back, we'll talk some more about...
Now, why don't you get a show just like this? You should have a show just like this. This would be great.
You think so?
Oh, yes. And they could put it right in the CNN lineup. I'm sure there's room. You got Piers Morgan. You got Pretty Boy. What's his name? Dawson Meehoffer. Huh? Oh, and...